Howdy, welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. I have a great guest for you today and a topic that I think everybody would be interested in. This podcast is going to be called The Copywriting in the Age of AI. Copywriting in the Age of AI with Nick Osborne. He's been copywriting for, he said 15 plus years before the internet for direct response. Definitely, I'm a student of Dan Kennedy and ClickFunnels and everything that's going on there. And AI has certainly changed the game. I would say, even with the announcement, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, of Apple integrating in at the core OS level Chat GPT. Okay. And so Siri is going to be very smart and is going to be listening to everything we say. And, it's going to be a very interesting world. When I watch even the, interviews and podcasts and stuff that I listen to from like ex-Google employees and people that are involved in AI, they can't even project out what's happening in 2 years. And certainly large language models and writing content has been at the forefront. And it's something that Nick, we were talking about. Welcome, Nick. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Your course, future-proof copywriting, I think is like really right at the forefront of what's happening, because we were talking about pre-show how the AI checkers, right? And we have a number of enterprise clients that are saying, hey, like, no AI content, don't submit AI content, right? And you said you had talking with some freelancers that are submitting content, that are writing the content or working with a writing shop. And, it's definitely writers. And maybe AI is used to write the outline, but it's being written by humans. And the AI checkers are saying, no, this is AI. Even stuff that I've written and published, and I just check it and I know I wrote it. Portions of it are saying, hey, this looks like AI. So, Google's having a really hard challenge with it. I think they threw up their hands a while back and said, hey, if it's good quality content, like, we're okay with it. Right. And so I would love to hear kind of what you're seeing on the bleeding edge with how copywriting is being impacted. Because I would even tell you, you could say, hey, write this ad in the style of Dan Kennedy and it'll do it. You know what I mean? And so there's some challenges with it. So really interested to kind of hear your viewpoint on a lot of this stuff.
So I'm like a longtime copywriter, and I teach and train a lot of writers, freelancers, and in-house teams, and I'm kind of seeing both extremes. Some people are saying, no, I'm not going to touch it. I don't trust it. It's useless. It's just a word guesser. These tools, they can't write. So that's one end. The other end, people are like all in, and sometimes being over reliant on AI. Because AI, like people, is imperfect, and so you'll see bias there, or you'll see the hallucinations, or just getting stuff wrong. I think that the smartest group I see are the people in between, who recognize that there's enormous, not just productivity benefits, but the way I use these models, I'm really attempting to become a better writer by using them. And I don't use it. I don't look at these models, something like GPT-4o, as simply a software tool. I actually have more of a mindset of collaborating with these models.
Yes.
So yes. I kind of treat it with a weird respect as a co-intelligence. It's not intelligent the way a human is, but there is, I don't just say, hey, write me tweets or write me an article on XYZ. I will get into conversation with these models. And I'll say, okay, what do you think are interesting topics for this audience in this kind of topic area? Give me some titles. And I'll say, hey, number 3, that looks interesting. Give me an outline. All right, this is looking great. Let's write, give me a first draft. And then I'll do something like, and this I think is what a lot of people don't do, is I'll pause and I'll say, hey, do you think there's anything we're missing here, or anything I'm missing here? And it's at that point that you're actually collaborating rather than instructing. It's no longer just a software tool. It's a co-work. I say, what do you think I'm missing? And I'm getting to the habit of doing that more and more, because I get some really great feedback of like, wow, I would not have thought of that,
Well,
or I wouldn't have thought of it that way.
So like I'll half the time say please when
Yes.
I'm talking
Yeah.
to it, but I think it's really healthy to get into conversation with it. But I also like even like a learning tool, if you don't know, like I think it's super helpful if you have a good foundation of what you're trying to do, right? Like if you're trying to move into a vertical that you don't understand at all, you should treat it as like a learning tool to learn more about that segment, right? Like, so if you don't understand target audience, customer personas, the customer journey, like, what channel you're advertising on, you need some background information to work with the prompts to get the right answer. You can't just
Sure.
say, give me the right answer. And what you're saying is you're building the data set and you're building it contextually to understand what you're asking for, to get the prompt right based on the past information to get the right answer. And
Yeah.
and so yeah.
I mean, for sure. Like when people claim that they get disappointing output, I kind of probe and ask them about their prompting habits or prompting process. And usually the problem is not with the model, it's with the person's prompt. So to your point, I mean, I create a lot of detail. Like if I want to, say, write a blog post, if I wanted to write me a first and second draft of a blog post, I will give it a lot of information. I will give it the reader persona or
Yeah.
avatar. I'll say, this is who we're writing to. This is who you are. Please, this is your role. You are an expert in ABC. And then I'll say, look, here's specifically what I want you to do. And here are some examples. Like, say, if I wanted to write a sequence of 3 emails, I'll say, look, here's 20 emails we've done before that proved to be really successful. So learn from that. So I might be pasting in, 1,000 words of instruction, or I might do it a step at a time. But yeah, I'm giving it a lot of information to work with. So I think that whole thing, and the other thing that I do a lot and that I teach a lot is to deliberately add in where AI tends to be a little weak, which is on the emotion side, the emotional intelligence. So a lot of what I'm teaching, and in my course that you referenced, like I'm teaching artificial intelligence plus emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence is like, hey, these models are amazing. They demonstrate remarkable, what they do, I think, is absolutely remarkable. But they've never fallen in love. They've never eaten ice cream. They've never walked on the beach and felt the sand between their toes. So that experiential, emotional side of being human is something that they've read about, but they've never felt firsthand. So that's something what I try to do is to weave in kind of emotional intelligence and also prompt them to be more emotional, which sometimes they get and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, no, you can say write this more conversationally. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely different things that you can say. And also I would tell the audience that I have tested out very, very, very detailed prompt sets versus more maybe shallow prompt sets. And the amount of difference I'm getting is not very high. So I think that there's some background research that people can do to understand kind of what the prompting categories are and how it's going to write. Because, I think that, well, I don't know, is it Mark Twain or something that said, hey, I would write you a letter. Um, or if I had more time, I would have write you a shorter letter or something
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
those lines. So it's very precise. Like I like how it gets to the point and it's like, hey, say this better, say this more professional,
Right.
say this in a way. And like, I'm seeing a lot of people that don't know maybe the English language great to use that as help. Like, how do I say this more appropriately? But I think your point on the human emotion, the human experiences, that's what I think you have to do, because AI is giving like the data set of the baseline of whatever it knows,
Right.
and you need to share that real world experience. So Google says eat, expertise, authority, trust, and they added
Right.
the experience component, and that experience component is your personal experience with whatever that you can insert into whatever you're
Sure.
collaborating, right, with AI, and really offer something above and beyond or expert level or experiential knowledge in a specific area. And I think that that's what's really important. I think that like you said, like the productivity tool, this just makes people better at what they already know how to do.
Yeah.
And certainly if you don't know something, you can shortcut learning by using it as a learning tool by asking the right prompts. And I think there's going to be a lot of training applications
Oh, for
for
sure.
AI, right?
For sure.
Um,
And there is, I mean, to a point you're touching on a little while ago, it's I kind of do this kind of iterative prompting process. So I might say, I was a while back, I was writing a sales page, and it was about networking and conferences and things like that. And I had GPT 4.0 do a first draft, and I said, hey, let's just start with like a story, an anecdote, which you'll often see in a sales page. And it did, and it made up this story. And when I read the story, I was like, huh, because it actually reminded me of an experience I had at a conference of where I saw someone walking towards me and I couldn't remember their name. And it was like really embarrassing. So what was happening there is it prompted me to remember something. And then I rewrote the opening with my real personal experience. And when you do that, there's a kind of authenticity of when you share your own experience. There's an authenticity that it's very, very hard for AI to replicate. So I'm going back and forward. And in fact, it was the model that prompted me to think of my own experience, which I then added into the copy, which made it better. So it really is this back and forth. And I think also that's really important in that it helps differentiate your output. So I see services online now where it says, hey, come to us and we'll create your content at scale. Here's your prompt library, here's your template library. And I'm saying, guys, if you use the same models with the same prompt library and the same template for your emails or blog posts, if everyone is using the
so Nick, I want to take it back to talking about your background on how you got into this. So I think it's really exciting what's going on with all the AI, but I think really understanding the history of copywriting and kind of where it is, and then like looking forward is important. So can you just, for the audience's benefit and my benefit, I know a little bit about you, but I would love to kind of hear the story of like how you got into copywriting and like what you've seen it do. Because I mean, I think it moves the needle. And like Dan Kennedy, I mean, he was just brilliant. And I've read so many of his books. And he started actually doing the target, like a book for every target persona, right? Like, so a lot of the same stuff.
right.
And I would say he's where I really cut my. So share with me a little bit about your background, how you got into it, and some of the clients you've worked with, and all stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Okay. So I got into it in 1979. So please don't do the math. And I've been a copywriter ever since. That's how I've earned my living. And I worked as a trainee copywriter in an ad agency in central London, UK. And it was the kind of the tail end of Mad Men, I guess. It was a time when the creative department was king or queen. In the creative department in that agency, I kind of felt I was at home, as a copywriter. And I spent many years doing print advertising at that agency. Then I left there and was a co-founder of a direct response agency with 3 other people. And I was doing that for a number of years. Then I moved to Canada. I was creative director of an ad agency in Toronto. I've worked with Apple. I've worked with the New York Times, with Yahoo, with Microsoft. I've worked with a lot of large companies and medium-sized companies as a writer. And then in 1995, I created my first website, which was fairly early, because I just loved it. This thing, like this internet thing, and back then, the internet it wasn't really a commercial space much. Back in 1995, it was more this kind of democratization of media. It was like this amazing place where anybody could be a publisher, no gatekeepers. It was gorgeous, and there was this kind of dream, and like I was straight into it. And by 1997, I'd given up any kind of direct response physical, like direct mail. I was 100% online by 1997, and again at conferences, and just loving it because it was such a dramatic time. And then, in the early 2000s, I remember, well, we got into some social media stuff. And then, of course, we things changed. It's we got these very large companies taking control, much more control. And all of a sudden it was Google and Amazon and Microsoft and Facebook and just these massive companies kind of becoming the new gatekeepers. So that early dream kind of disappeared a bit. And I guess for artificial intelligence, I'm always interested in what's new. I started getting into that about 5 years ago. I had a small agency where we would working with chatbots for companies. Cool. And some of that was just like conversational design, if this, then that. But we were also using some rudimentary AI. We were using Watson. And that was like, it made my brain hurt. It was like, it wasn't a conversational interface like we have now. It was really complicated doing AI back then. And then along comes in November of, what was it, 2022, GPT 3.5, and that just blew me away. It's like, I tried it like within a week, and it's like 20 years had passed in the course of a weekend. It was just this unbelievable thing. And I guess we take it for granted now. But that first week, that first few tries with chat AI, just blew my mind. So I've been really, really interested in that. But as a copywriter, and you talk about Dan Kennedy and the kind of other copywriting greats, that they'll all tell you that the most important thing in persuasive writing is emotion. You've got to connect with people emotionally. Emotion is the trigger that drives engagement and drives conversion. And as I was getting into AI as a productivity and as a writing tool, I thought this is insanely useful and interesting and fascinating, but it's kind of weak on human emotion, which is such an important part in communication. So that's where I really got into my message of, look, AI, yes, go all in. You have to go all in as a writer, as a freelancer, but don't forget emotional intelligence. Don't forget that emotional side, because that's where you as a human are still way superior to these AI models. So basically, you asked for the story, and it's kind of a long story, but that's how I got here.
No, I think that was like a hugely key piece, right? Is AI. Well, I think after they get a big enough data set, right? Like they will figure out the emotion. I mean, the stories that they tell are incredible, right? Yeah. But I mean, currently where it is right now, you have to trigger that emotion. That real world experience, as we've been talking about, is so critical to the human experience, and the finding those pain points, right? Like it's like pain and greed, or like what are those are like kind of two of the main factors that drive people to make decisions. And so knowing that when you're writing copywriting and leveraging AI, that's a really critical piece walking into it. I can tell you it's kind of funny. When ChatGPT came out, everybody was like hearing about it. I was on panels and people were like talking about it, but like what it was, but no one was really using it but me. And I was early on, which I'm already outed for this. So, so I think it's okay. But I was posting like on my wife's on my wife's Facebook, like, we're celebrating this or we're celebrating that. And I would use AI to say, what would be the most, what would be the best message to say about this, right? And then it's like it's taking all the experiences it has and giving the, bell curve best answer, right? So like you're hitting the target right in the center. And then I added, some personalization to it. So it is mine. And I can tell you, like, she was over the moon. And then about 6 months later, she was just like, oh my gosh, like, this just, she's sending me like hearts and like super, super, right? And then she figures it out because I had sent her some article. Because it was like, what industries are going to be, displaced by this? So I think that's a real concern. And
Right.
I think, right, people that use AI. I had a head of copywriting at our company, and she was adamantly opposed to using anything AI. She was like, like, hey, it threatened her job. Like, this is not something I'm interested in doing. Anybody on my team, we're not going to do this. So, like, in some leadership meetings, there was a little bit of kind of like, okay, so you're like, this is a no-go path, right? And I kind of, after a few conversations, were like, this is the like way forward. They're like you're trying to, water's coming down a river very, very fast, and you're trying to go up the river. I
Right.
said, this is just like, we have to do this or we're going to get left behind, sort of thing. And so, she had a different direction, and like, everybody walks a path for a certain amount of time, and then, they may go their separate ways. They may reconnect. And so we certainly changed the model over the last 2 years of what we were doing. And, when we talk about SEO, content's the engine that drives SEO.
Right.
And then there's a lot of kind of signals that you're sending so that the AI on the other side. So you got an AI now talking to AI, and there's like degradation of models. And that's why you got to add kind of that human experience. That's why Elon Musk, I think, when he bought Twitter, he's like, let's get rid of all these bots, because he can't train a data set on, AI talking to AI, because you're getting to a homogeny of knowledge. You need to keep feeding it rich data. And so, I don't know. You're right. It has evolved very, very rapidly. And like we were talking about before, we can't even project out the future. What it's going to look. I mean, what are your predictions, I guess, on where you see it heading and going? Because you've been walking both of these paths pretty early on. Where do you see it really?
I would, well, like you say, the answer is I don't know. But I got a few guesses. So one of the things that happened in the last few months is that WPP, which is the world's largest ad agency group, they own like the top 100 ad agencies in the world, including like iconic agencies like Ogilvy. And they are just inking a deal with Google to work with Gemini, and they are basically going to use Gemini across these 100 top agencies to basically handle ideation, campaign ideas, copy, images, art direction. So AI is going into the agency world in a big way, and they're not the only agency group doing this. And I kind of get it, because the math of this is irresistible to a company or to an agency or organization. So sometimes I see copywriters like getting confrontational with a company, saying, look, if I write copy for you, it's going to be better than what you can do with these models. And the company's saying, we agree, but when we use GPT-4 or equivalent, we're getting content written 100 times faster on 1 cent in the dollar compared to you. So yes, you're better, but the math says we shouldn't work with you anymore. So there is, I see that pathway evolving, where companies do automate more and more and more of their, on the agency side and on the company side. But I think there will be a pullback, a pushback, and this is something that we began to touch on earlier, which is what I call the sameness trap. If you use the same models with the same prompts and the same templates, you will get output that looks strikingly similar, because of course you will, using the same tools to generate the output. And that, for a company, is the last thing you want. You've probably spent billions of dollars like generating a particular brand character for your company. the last thing you want is to sound the same. So there'll be this tension. I think companies will be drawn to the math of it. They want to maximize their use of AI, so they're getting maximum output for minimum expense. But at the same time, they've got to protect their brand. They've got to protect their points of difference. And that's where the human then leans in and says, I can help you with that. Because when you were talking about my origins back in the early days when I was in London, and that was like the Mad Men days, creativity was key. It was all about creativity. And like when I'm a huge fan, I work a lot with these models, but I've yet to see any of them write a headline where I think, oh my goodness, that is incredible. Like they're all workable headlines, but nothing really fantastically creative. So I think human emotion and creativity are the differentiating points. And I think that's where we lean in and keep ourselves relevant as human creatives writers.
I agree with you on the headlines, and certainly when I've taken copywriting courses, and the headlines are more important than the rest of the copy, because you gotta get them in the door, right? You got to get them interested. Right. And I do agree with you that the headlines aren't showstoppers yet. I think what will probably end up happening is a lot of you've worked with some big banks. Like there's a lot of limiting of using the public data, right? And so I think that they're going to silo a lot of their data. And I hadn't heard this deal about the ad agencies. I actually know someone that sold into that kind of conglomerate where they're independent, but they have a parent.
Right.
And I think what probably people are going to do is take the model, silo it, like wall it off, feed their own data, all the stuff they've done. And you could do that for a particular brand. Here's everything we've done for that brand. And then generatively predict, where could this go? Right. And I've seen that even individuals, like, so you take all the stuff you've ever copyrighted, Nick, and you put it in there, and you can make a bot that could answer as you could answer. Right. And so what do you think about that? Because that's where I see it.
I think it's happening. So the third largest agency group, and I forget the name, it's based in Paris, France, and they also own about 100 agencies, and they're investing hundreds of millions in their own model, and they're doing exactly what you're talking about. They're saying to all the agencies in the group, they say, we want all the data, all the creative, all the results, everything you have in your silos for the last 20 years, and we're going to feed it into our model. So our model is not a public-facing model like ChatGPT. It is just looking at the creative and the copy and the results and the data from our agency world for 20 years to now. So yeah, to your point, that is being built right now.
So the one thing I'm starting to think about now is you did a lot with chatbots, right? And I think that so you're also well versed in that track. What are you seeing? I mean, I see chatbots replacing like customer service, replacing sales. I mean, like where the agency, it makes sense, right? It totally makes sense at scale to do that. How is that going to change the landscape, do you think? I mean, do you think there's going to be a lot of shedding of creatives? I mean, I think that there has to be, but like, what does it look like? Like, so say these get implemented, you fast forward a couple years. Now, what does the landscape look like? Because now, remember, data is the digital, like your data is the value, right? So then people are maybe buying agencies to get access to all their years and years of copy and client base to build the data sets. I've seen also, I wrote an article a while back, like someone else coined it. It was like the intimacy economy. Okay. So the personalization of AI can understand somebody and communicate and be much more, thoughtful than even a human could be in a lot of cases. And so like using it from a therapy standpoint, but also people want personalization. Like, I mean, we were on a call yesterday doing a deck presentation, and we were like, we were talking about case studies as like part of our process. Here's about the company, here's the case studies, whatever. They like cut us off and they're like, how is that going to be applied like specifically to us. Like they were like a disc profile, like a D. They were like, we want to know how that affects us directly. They don't even want to see it at it. It was a little bit like, hey, like this is a rhyming. It's not exactly, but it rhymes of what you're trying to do. And they're like, no, how is that going to be applied to our model, and what are the results going to be? So I thought that was super interesting. And so I think this personalization, this intimacy of connection, because there's so much information out there, it's almost like information overload. I even have to like take a break so I can think and get my thoughts together, because I'm getting hit with, technology 24/7, like going fishing or something like that. I like to get away from the technology.
Me too. I go cycling each day or kayaking just to get away from it. But to the personalization point, that is coming fast and furious. You mentioned the Apple thing with Siri being upgraded and having access to GPT-4 and things like that. So you imagine now that within that ecosystem on your iPhone, imagine that they want to sell you something. They know you intimately, everything that's on your phone, or everything you do, so every single message. So if Apple is selling something, then they can change that message person by person. Every single owner can get a slightly different version of that sales pitch based on who they are and what they do and how they interact with the world through Siri and through their iPhone. So there could well become a time where every time we look at an ad, unless it's print, but every time we look at a digital ad or digital messaging or email, there is an element there that is personalized specifically for me or you as an individual. So this is like, when I go back to my direct mail, physical direct mail, junk mail days, it was the dream of like one-to-one marketing, but you could never do it back then. It was very rudimentary. And we've been getting closer and closer to that idea of one-to-one marketing. And now we're just inches away from that, where every marketing message can be changed according to the recipient and their experiences and their fears and desires and their lifestyle and everything.
So there was actually a Google data dump about a month ago that revealed a lot of stuff. I've been really busy and need to do a podcast about that. That'll probably be happening fairly soon. But one of the things also that I am seeing that Google's doing, and they've come out and said it, is all search. Okay. So a lot of what we do, rankings for different search terms, there's long tail key phrases, like qualifying for topical authority. There's a lot that kind of goes into the strategy of it. But also tracking keywords is really important for clients. Okay.
Right.
And Google came out and said every search is going to be personalized based on the previous searches of that person, just like what Apple's doing, where they're going to know us better than we know ourselves, and they're going to write the copy. And they're doing this with it's called Performance Max. So it's basically, hey, give us a bunch of different taglines, give us a bit of different images, and then the AI will figure out what's working best. But then you layer on that personalization component to it as well. So you're testing it in mass, but then you're testing it for that individual. And I'm starting to see, like, even in search results, hey, that kind of caught my attention, right? Like, okay, that's something I might be interested in.
Do you think that's working well yet?
I think that from what I'm seeing is they are spending an absorbent amount of money to add the AI horsepower to the searches. And it's actually more expensive for them to do organic searches, but they're trying to protect market share as a search platform because of all the inroads that Microsoft ads and Bing are making. And then Bing even has like a dedicated team that's like, hey, let's press this advantage. And so, we're really getting to this battle here. And I mean, even Elon Musk is coming out and saying, like, we're going to put things in a Faraday cage because there's security issues here. Cause it's just learning, right? Like it's just learning from everybody and everything. And then it's like, it's going to be the war of the AIs. Like whoever has the biggest data set, who has the smartest AI is going to, and who knows what they're going to use it for, but it's going to be an interesting it's going to be interesting. That's all I know.
And I think, hey, I agree, and I think as we go forward, we'll see more and more of this technology. But I also see something else, which is there will be a place for, say, agencies, boutique agencies, to say the greatest we have found out in the desert of technology, we have found the best creatives, the human creative directors, the copywriters, the designers, the art directors, who still know how to create outstanding advertising. And I think there'll be a market for that, and there'll be almost like a hunger for that. Is that, yes, I think we'll be overwhelmed by the by artificial intelligence in marketing and communication and sales, but that it'll almost become a kind of must-have for some brands to actually go back to the human creative and say, no AI, just be an amazing creative person and come up with some campaign ideas. I think that there will always, I think, be a place for that. Maybe I'm maybe I'm being romantic, but actually I think it can give you an advantage to also tap into that human creativity.
Well, I mean, people do business with people they know, like, and trust, and
Right.
they want to know that the other person on the other side of the table cares. And I think putting everything in autopilot with AI, I think it's just going to be a lot smaller. I think that, that's why they're talking about universal basic income, because, well, there's going to be the people that understand how to use the technology and that have like a firm basis and understanding in whatever the art is that they're bringing value to the world in, and then you apply it with that, and it increases that productivity. And then, there's going to, I mean, maybe it's going to make time for a lot more art, right? Like, where a lot of people
Yeah.
have time. Like, I mean, that was what I was told, right? When like email was coming around, and like technology was going to help us work less. And so that we could, experience life more and make our world better. What just happened is, like, work harder, work faster,
Yeah.
the cycles, no, I agree with you. So we're kind of getting to the point of wrapping up. I would love to hear any kind of final thoughts. What you're offering. I think it's super important that people understand how to use AI if they've heard about it but haven't stepped into it. Certainly, like my past, director of content, like, it's coming, and I
Yeah.
think you should embrace it.
I mean,
And
I mean,
you know,
my message to every freelancer and everyone writing within company marketing groups is lean into this to the max. I think you're gonna, you know, you either ride the wave or you get crushed by it, right?
yeah,
And I don't think that there's really much of an in between. So yeah, I think you have to lean in and learn it because it's here. It's a transformational technology. To try to ignore it is a bit like the candle maker ignoring Edison's light bulb. Ignore it all you like. It's not going to make any difference because that technology transformed the world. Or the Model T Ford coming out. If you made horse buggies, you may have hated the motor car, but it doesn't matter what you think of it. It's coming. And it's the same with AI. You may not like it, but it's coming. So my recommendation is lean into it. But also, I think for that point of differentiation, either for differentiating yourself and also for differentiating on behalf of your clients, lean into the emotional intelligence side as well, because emotion has always been the most powerful factor in marketing communications and engaging and in driving conversions.
I love it. Nick, how do people get in touch with you if they want to hear more or get some training and you use and leverage your knowledge and help? So
Okay, so my website is nickosborne.com. So NICKUSBORNE.com. And if you go to nickosborne.com/SEO, I have put together like a landing page. There's a free download. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can get a discount on my course. And just poke around the website. I have a blog there, and I have hundreds of blog posts on this topic on the site. So yeah, nickosborne.com/SEO.
awesome. Well, Nick, it was a pleasure to have you on. We'll have to maybe check in down the road and see how things are changing. I really like the kind of visionary forethought kind of look of where things are going, because no one knows. Like, it's
I know.
such
I know.
a interesting time we live in. So thank you so much, Nick, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. As you can tell, I love talking about this stuff. Interesting times.
Interesting times. All right, everyone. Bye-bye for now.